I'm Justin, 22. And 5 years ago, I walked out of my house with a duffel bag and $3,400 in cash because my dad suspended me for not apologizing to my sister after she assaulted me. What followed? Well, it destroyed the perfect little family they thought they had. Let me take you back to the beginning. I was 17, trying to finish my calculus homework, the kind worth 20% of your grade, when my sister Ashley barged in, demanded my laptop, and when I said no, she flipped out. No exaggeration, she grabbed my textbook and chucked it across the room, then shoved me so hard I knocked over my water bottle and soaked 3 hours of notes and assignments. This wasn't some freak event. This was years in the making. Ashley, the golden child. I was the afterthought. She got new phones, vacations, free passes. I got, be more like your sister, and a lecture for breathing too loud. She'd walk in my room, wreck my stuff, then cry when I told her to leave. That day was no different, except I'd had enough. I didn't even yell. I physically moved her out. Not shoved. Not slapped. Just calmly walked her out of my room. She screamed bloody murder, and 5 minutes later, my dad was at my door, fists knocking like the police. You touched your sister? She destroyed my homework and pushed me. I don't care what she did. You never lay hands on her. Classic. No questions. No interest in my side. Ashley stood behind him, fake tears streaming like she trained for Broadway. I pointed to my dripping homework and said, "What exactly am I apologizing for?" He didn't flinch. "You're suspended from this house until you do." Suspended. From my own home. He took my phone, my laptop, my freedom. Ashley watched, smirking. Waiting for me to fold like always. Instead, I said, "All right." I packed that night. Not angry. Just done. I left a note on the kitchen table that said, "Gone. Don't look for me." And I drove away before sunrise. Uncle Bobby didn't ask questions when I showed up at 6 a.m., with a duffel bag and tired eyes. He poured me gas station coffee, laced with too much sugar, and said, "Spare rooms upstairs. You'll work for your keep, but you're welcome here." That was the first fair deal I'd been offered in years. Bobby's a mechanic. Owns his own shop. Wears oil like cologne and doesn't care about appearances. He's my dad's younger brother, the one the family pretends doesn't count because he didn't wear a tie to his job. The irony? He's the only one who actually treated me like a person. So I started working at Bobby's auto repair. Oil changes, tire rotations, brake jobs. At first, I was clumsy, dropped a wrench on my foot, and nearly stripped a bolt I shouldn't have touched. But Bobby never yelled. Just showed me how to do it better. Jake and Tommy, the other 2 guys at the shop, took me under their wing like I was their little brother. I found peace under the hood of a car. There's something beautiful about a machine that either works or doesn't. No favoritism. No pretending. Just problems and solutions. Back at my parents' place? All hell was breaking loose. They expected me to come crawling back. I didn't. I had a bed, a job, a kitchen table where nobody screamed, and the start of something real. On day 4, Bobby picked up the shop phone and held it out. "It's your mom." I shook my head. "Tell her I'm not here." He nodded once, didn't argue. By the end of the first week, I'd earned my first paycheck. Bobby handed it to me with grease on the envelope and said, "Go get yourself some real work boots." I did. I also bought a used flip phone. No apps. Just enough to call work and text Bobby. Because I knew, deep down, the calls from home weren't gonna stop. And sure enough, they started piling in, from my dad, my mom, even Ashley. But now, they couldn't reach me. They'd built their perfect little system on guilt and silence. I finally chose neither. 3 months after I left, they showed up at the shop. I was under a Civic replacing an oil pan gasket when I heard the bell. Rolled out, and there they were, Dad in a tucked-in polo, Mom with that "please behave" face, Ashley pretending to look innocent in a pastel sweater like she didn't try to destroy my life 5 months earlier. Bobby appeared from the office, leaned in the doorway like a human firewall. Dad spoke first. "Justin, we need to talk." "I'm working." Ashley stepped forward. "I'm sorry for what happened." I looked at her, dead in the eye. "What exactly are you sorry for?" She blinked. "For the fight." "Which part?" "The part where you ruined my homework. Shoved me? Lied to Dad? Or watched me get suspended from my own house and smiled like you won something?" Her voice wobbled. I didn't lie. Yeah. I cut in. You did. And you know it. Dad's jaw clenched. That's enough. You're coming home. This has gone on long enough. I wiped my hands on a rag. I'm 18. I don't live with people who punish me for being assaulted. Mom tried next. We just want to be a family again. Funny, I said. You didn't care about that when you took her side without asking a single question. Ashley's mask was slipping. The softness faded. You're seriously going to stay here? Working on cars? Like a dropout? I just grinned. Better than living off excuses and handouts. Dad stepped forward. You're being disrespectful. Bobby finally moved. Not fast, just solid. You're done here, he said to my dad. You've said your piece. This is family business. Dad snapped. He's working in my shop, living in my house. That makes it my business. They didn't expect a wall they couldn't guilt trip. They left red-faced and muttering, Ashley flinging one last gem over her shoulder. You'll regret this. Doubt it. They were the ones regretting it, though they didn't know it yet. 2 months later, I had a diploma from the night school program. Bobby got me a toolbox. Jake and Tommy chipped in for tools. I bought a beater truck from auction, fixed it myself, and drove it home. The family who thought I'd break? They were just beginning to fall apart. The cracks started small. Whispers from extended family. Aunt Karen called first. They're struggling, Justin. Your mom's working 2 jobs. Your dad took out a second mortgage. I didn't say anything. And Ashley. She sighed. She's pregnant. 4 months. The father's not in the picture. I blinked. Wow. You should talk to them. No. Justin. They needed me to apologize for defending myself. Now they need me because things are hard. Those aren't the same. I hung up. Felt guilty for an hour. Then went back to work replacing a clutch on a 98 Accord. A week later, Dad showed up again. Alone this time. No performance squad. He looked older. Deflated. We need help, he said. I didn't stop working. With what? Money. Ashley's not working. Baby's due in 5 months. Your mom's hours got cut. I'm drowning, son. I just nodded. That sounds rough. He looked like I'd slapped him. You really going to turn your back on your own family? No, I said calmly. You turned your back on me the second you called it assault when I defended myself. I just finally stopped playing along. He tried to spin it. We made mistakes. We're trying to fix them. No. You're trying to survive them. Fixing would mean acknowledging the damage you caused. He left, looking 10 pounds heavier in guilt. Or maybe just shame. Meanwhile, I bought a better truck. Bobby made me 30% partner after our best quarter ever. We were expanding. By the time Ashley gave birth, I was finalizing paperwork on my own little house. 2 bedrooms. Fenced yard. Enough space for a dog and a workshop. They lost theirs 2 months later. Foreclosure. Moved into a 2-bedroom rental across town. Dad working retail. Mom doing freelance data entry. Ashley waitressing part-time with a newborn strapped to her chest. I saw a post online. Ashley holding the baby, Emily, with a caption that read, "Family is everything." I didn't like it. I didn't comment. I didn't visit. Because family isn't everything. Respect is. Summer hit hard, not just the heat, but the reality. They were broke. Not struggling. Not tight on cash. Broke. Dad lost his job. Some corporate downsizing. Mom's hours got slashed again. Ashley was still living with them, now with a baby in tow and no degree, no job security, no clue. I heard about the foreclosure through Aunt Karen. She was one of the few who didn't throw guilt grenades every holiday. They need 12 grand to stop the bank, she said over lunch. I'm not asking you to pay. Just telling you. I nodded. Thanks for telling me. Because I had 12 grand. Sitting in savings. Earned by busting knuckles, freezing fingers in the shop during January repairs, skipping takeout, and living lean. 12 grand would have saved their house. But it would have sent a louder message. Hurt me. Use me. I'll still come when you call. I didn't send the money. They lost the house. Moved into a cramped rental, 2 bedrooms for 4 people including a baby. Dad picked up retail management work. Mom was answering phones remotely. Ashley posted Instagram stories about being a mama warrior, with Starbucks cups and borrowed clothes. Then came the Christmas card. Ashley sent it. Photo of Emily in a red onesie. Note scribbled on the back. Merry Christmas from your niece. We're at 847 Pine Street if you ever want to visit. Manipulation, dressed as sentiment. Bobby found me staring at it later that night, jaw tight. You good? I almost went. I admitted. Almost. He just sipped his coffee. Almost means you still know your reasons. Stick with them. So I threw the card away. Didn't mail a gift. Didn't call. Because this isn't a Hallmark movie. Some families don't come back from the fire. Some just sit in the ashes and still blame the one who left the match untouched. 16 months after I walked out with a duffel bag and a note, I owned a house. Not a mansion, not a showpiece, but mine. Bought with busted knuckles, honest work, and every boundary I'd finally learned how to set. And just when it looked like peace had finally settled, they came knocking again. Literally. I opened the door one Thursday evening to find Dad on the porch. Alone again. Looking like he'd aged 10 years in one. Justin, he said. I was wrong. My first instinct. Slammed the door. Instead, I crossed my arms. About what, exactly? About that day. The suspension. About not listening. About Ashley. I raised an eyebrow. He sighed. I didn't believe you. I didn't want to. There it was. He wasn't crying. He wasn't groveling. But his voice cracked when he said, You were right. We failed you. I failed you. For a second, I didn't know what to say. I'd spent years imagining this moment. Some version of it where he finally saw the truth. But now that it was here, it didn't feel like a win. It felt like grief. Like an overdue apology wrapped in too much time lost. You're not here for money? I asked carefully. He shook his head. Not this time. We're surviving. Barely. But I needed you to hear it from me. You were never the problem, Justin. We just didn't know how to handle someone who didn't fit into the script. I swallowed hard. You want forgiveness? I asked. No, he said. I just wanted to tell the truth before it was too late. He turned to leave. I let him go. Because that's what real healing looks like sometimes. Not hugs. Not reunions. Just truth. Finally spoken. That winter, Bobby handed me the final papers. 50-50 partner in the shop. Full title. Co-owner. We popped open a root beer each and toasted in the bay after closing. To earn respect, he said. To the life they said I'd regret, I replied. Then we got back to work. Because that's what we do. We fix things. We move forward. The silence that followed was louder than any fight we'd ever had. No more calls. No more fake apologies from Ashley. Just space. Glorious, guilt-free space. And into that silence, I built something. By 20, I had 3 mechanics under me and a second location in progress. Bobby and I had grown the shop from a pit stop to a reputation. The kind of place where people sent their moms, because they knew we wouldn't lie to them. I didn't need a resume. I had returning customers. I didn't need family support. I had loyalty that money couldn't fake. Ashley, meanwhile? Still living with Mom and Dad. Still working a part-time job that barely covered formula. The baby, Emily, was almost 2. I'd still never met her. One day, I got a letter. No return address, just my name scrawled in big hopeful letters. Inside was a handprint in paint. Purple. With a note in handwriting that clearly wasn't a child's. Emily says hi. I hope one day you'll want to know her. We're not perfect, but she deserves better than this silence. Ashley. No apology. Just a guilt hook wrapped in glitter. I stared at that letter for a long time. Then I filed it in a folder labeled unanswered. A week later, I got a message from an old high school teacher. Mrs. Davison. Heard you own Bobby's now. Proud of you. Would love to bring my car in. She came in for a routine brake job, left with a hug and a homemade loaf of banana bread. You always had more sense than people gave you credit for, she said. That night I sat on my porch. My porch. In my house. Drinking cheap beer and watching the sunset hit the hood of my Silverado just right. I didn't need their version of peace. I had my own. And it was damn quiet. The silence didn't kill me. It saved me. 3 years passed since I walked out of my parents' house with a duffel bag and a head full of boiling clarity. 3 years since I was suspended from my own home for refusing to apologize to a sister who shoved me, destroyed my homework, and played victim so well it deserved an Emmy. 3 years of no birthdays, no holidays, no family dinners. 3 years of no apologies. And for the first time in my life, I could breathe. I lived in a house I bought myself. Nothing flashy, 2 bedrooms, chipped paint on the porch rail, and a front lawn that looked like it needed therapy. But it was mine. Bought with grease-stained paychecks, weekends of skip takeout, and every boundary I refused to let them bulldoze. The shop? Thriving. Bobby made me 50-50 partner on my 21st birthday. Said, "You earned it, not just with your work, with your spine." I almost laughed. A spine. That's what it came down to in the end. Not muscles, not brains, just the ability to say no when your whole life taught you to nod and survive. We opened a second location that summer. Hired 2 more techs. Our reviews online? Glowing. Customers drove across the county because we didn't upsell, didn't lie, didn't talk down to women. We just fixed cars and treated people like people. Meanwhile, the old house, my parents' rental, was falling apart. I didn't see it myself, but Aunt Karen kept me updated. She became the only relative I still talked to, the one who called not to guilt-trip me but to check in. She said Ashley still lived at home, now with 2 kids and no degree. Dad was working retail again. Mom picked up online transcription gigs that barely paid. They were underwater. And I was remodeling my kitchen. One day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name in oversized cursive like someone was trying too hard to be sweet. Inside was a construction paper card with a purple handprint. Emily's, probably. In glitter, no less. Real kindergarten production. Underneath, in adult handwriting. Emily says hi. I hope one day you'll want to know her. We're not perfect, but she deserves better than this silence. Signed, Ashley. Not an apology. Not even close. Just a gilt grenade tossed into my mailbox, wrapped in glitter and, think of the children, energy. I sat with that card for an hour. Thought about the baby I'd never met. Thought about the little girl who had Ashley's eyes, Dad's chin, and zero say in the wreckage that was her mother's choices. But I didn't go. I didn't write back. Because this wasn't about Emily. It was about Ashley looking for a reset without earning one. About my parents hoping I'd forget the years they erased me. If they wanted forgiveness, they could start by acknowledging I existed. Not just as the other kid. The one who wasn't a problem until he refused to be a doormat. Later that month, I saw a Facebook post from someone I went to high school with. Spotted at the county fair, Ashley, my last name, with 2 kids and no ring. When did that happen? The comment thread got messy. I didn't engage. Bobby knocked on my door that night, holding a 6-pack and a grin. Heard we're local legends now. Everyone's talking about your brake work on that sheriff's car. Want to celebrate? We grilled burgers on my back porch, drank cold beer, and didn't talk about family. Just life. Plans. Maybe buying the lot next door and expanding the shop. Maybe renting out part of the old building to a friend who wanted to open a bike repair business. You're the only 22-year-old I know with savings, a mortgage, and no student debt. Bobby said, laughing. I'm also the only 22-year-old I know who's been grounded into a man by family dysfunction and a torque wrench. He raised a bottle. To torque wrenches. We clinked bottles. A few weeks later, a cousin I barely remembered messaged me on Instagram. Dude. You really cut them off, huh? Yup. Respect. I left it on read. Because what was there to say? Yes. I cut off the people who suspended me for not groveling to a manipulative sister. Yes. I left a house that only called me family when they needed a scapegoat. Yes. I refused to let guilt dress up as loyalty ever again. And yes, I was happier than I had ever been. Then came the knock. It was early October. Rain was coming in sideways. I opened the door, and there stood Ashley. No umbrella. No makeup. No camera-ready crocodile tears. Just her. Hair frizzed, sweater soaked, holding a toddler and a backpack. Can we talk? She asked. I looked at the kid. Emily, I assumed. The second child was in a carrier on her back. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I stepped aside. Ashley sat at the table while Emily drew on a napkin with one of my shop pens. And for the first time in her life, Ashley didn't start with excuses. "I was awful to you," she said. "I played the victim. I let them believe things that weren't true. I made you the villain because I didn't want to be the one in trouble. And I'm sorry. Not perfect. But honest." I nodded once. "Why now?" She looked tired. Not just in her face. In her bones. "Because I'm exhausted," she said. "Because I have 2 kids, and no support, and I finally understand what it means to do it alone. I thought I was the center of the universe. Turns out, I was just the storm." The baby cried. Emily handed her a napkin scribbled with ink. I handed her a towel. "Dry off." We talked. Not long. But enough. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask to move in. She just said, "If there's any way back from this, I'd like to try." I said, "That's up to you." They left 30 minutes later. She didn't hug me. I didn't offer. But before she stepped off the porch, she turned and said, "Emily asked if you were the uncle who fixes cars." I told her yes. I nodded. "That's a good place to start." A week later, I got a card in the mail. This time from Emily. Crayon scribbles of a truck and a stick figure. One word in wobbly letters. "Thank you?" Not for money. Not for forgiveness. Just thank you. And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need them to grovel. All I ever needed was to know I could walk away and still build a life so full, it made theirs look like a cautionary tale. And I had. I had my name on a business. I had my peace. I had my boundaries. And I had a porch light on, not for people who broke me, but for the ones who finally learned how to knock.